Module 5, Marijuana and Alcohol. Now remember, as we continue through Module 5, continue to take notes. In Module 1, we covered the physical and mental impacts of addiction. In Module 2, we explored some of the financial and legal implications. Now remember, those costs can vary state by state. In Module 3, we covered how substance use and misuse can impact your family and relationships, and had a brief introduction into the ways to build healthy relationships with youth. In the previous module, we explored how substance use impacts your career and your employers. And now in this module, we'll focus specifically on marijuana and alcohol. Marijuana is at the center of a passionate debate, and there are often exaggerated or even false claims made by those on each of the opposing sides. What matters is knowing the facts, and they can be difficult to find in the middle of so much hype. Regardless of changing laws or its potential role in developing new medical treatments, marijuana use has risks. Now let's dig a little bit deeper about what really is marijuana. First of all, marijuana goes by many names. Here's a list of street names that marijuana often goes by: blunt, dope, ganja, grass, herb, joint, bud, Mary Jane, pot, reefer, green, tree, smoke, skunk, and also weed, hash, tea, chronic, and loud. Now there are 4 main methods of ingesting marijuana. They can include inhalation, oral use, sublingual use, which means under the tongue, and topical use, such as oils and tinctures. So what is marijuana? Marijuana is a green and brown mix of dried flowers, stems, seeds, and leaves from the hemp plant cannabis. The main active chemical which gives the high is THC, otherwise known as tetrahydrocannabinol, and it moves quickly through the bloodstream to the brain and other organs throughout the body. THC acts on specific targets in the brain called cannabinoid receptors. Ordinarily, these receptors are activated by brain chemicals similar to THC that are part of the neural communication system, and they play an important role in brain development and function. Marijuana overactivates the system, causing impaired coordination, difficulty with thinking and problem solving, and disruptive learning and memory. Because it impairs coordination and judgment, marijuana use can more than double a driver's risk of being in an accident. And when used in conjunction with alcohol, the combined result is worse than either substance alone. Your brain goes through significant development during your teen and young adult years, and marijuana's effects on the developing brain create risks unique to that time period. Following marijuana use, a teen's decrease in cognitive abilities can last much longer than adults, as long as several weeks since the last use. With yet regular use, daily or near daily, the alterations to the brain caused by marijuana can become chronic and lead to weakened verbal communication skills, lowered learning capabilities, and a shortened attention span. There is also an association between chronic marijuana use and mental illness. A link has been demonstrated with later development of psychosis, and the risk increases for those who start young. Associations have also been found with other mental health problems, such as depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts among adolescents. Although more research is needed to better understand these connections, we still know that those are a risk. Marijuana can be addictive. It affects the brain's reward centers in similar ways as all other addictive substances. And the likelihood of addiction increases considerably for those who start young. When marijuana use becomes daily or near daily, alterations to the brain can lead to an inability to perceive any negative impact. In addition to the possible effects on your cognitive development and mental health, marijuana smoke is an irritant to the lungs, and frequent marijuana smokers can develop many of the same respiratory problems as tobacco smokers, such as daily cough and phlegm production, more frequent acute chest illness, and a greater risk of chest infections. The bottom line is this: marijuana has the potential to cause problems in your daily life or make existing problems worse. It limits your brain's effectiveness, slows down your thinking, and impairs coordination and judgment. And while you're young and still maturing, marijuana can have long-lasting negative impacts on your developing brain. But what about medical marijuana? Ohio is one of many states to move to legalized medical marijuana. And since 2012, recreational marijuana laws have passed in 8 states and Washington, D.C. But none of these laws allow residents to use marijuana whenever and wherever they want, particularly not in the workplace. Every state that has passed a recreational marijuana law strictly regulates its use. For example, by banning its use in public, regulating where it can be purchased, and limiting how much can be grown at home. Importantly, no state law forces employers to tolerate on-the-job use. In a majority of the states, employers don't have to make accommodations for even off-duty medical use. Employers don't have to tolerate on-the-job intoxication, even if a worker is using marijuana for medical reasons. Now let's shift gears for a moment and let's discuss alcohol use. This has always been a tough topic because alcohol use is so prevalent in our society. We don't always spot when it's a problem or even the normalization of those problems. However, alcohol kills more teens annually than all other drugs combined. It is a factor in the 3 leading causes of death in the 15 to 24 age group in the United States: accidents, homicides, and suicides. Binge drinking and chronic alcohol use are also associated with many health problems. According to the 2015 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, 86.4% of people aged 18 and older reported that they drank alcohol at some point in their lifetime. 70.1% reported that they drank in the past year, and 56% reported that they drank in the past month. Now let's take a look at alcohol use disorder in the United States. According to the 2015 National Survey on Drug Use and Health, 15.1 million adults aged 18 and older had an alcohol use disorder. This includes 9.8 million men and 5.3 million women. But only about 6.7% of adults who had an alcohol use disorder in the past year received treatment. According to the same survey, an estimated 623,000 adolescents aged 12 to 17 also had an alcohol use disorder. This number includes 298,000 males and 325,000 females. And again, only about 5.2% of youth who had an alcohol use disorder in the past year had received treatment. What are some of the impacts of alcohol use disorder? One night of drinking alcohol can affect your performance at work, school, sports, and other activities for several days because of alcohol's impact on the sleep cycle. Generally, the more an individual is intoxicated, the more sleep is altered negatively. Even moderate amounts of alcohol can keep you from getting a full night of rest. Effects of alcohol-induced sleep disturbances include thinking process slowdown, mood swings, loss of focus, sleepiness or feeling tired, and even stunted growth. Some of the short-term effects of alcohol use include slurred speech, vomiting, drowsiness, distorted vision, hearing, and coordination, impaired judgment, headaches, breathing difficulties, poor perception and coordination, unconsciousness, and even coma. Some of the long-term effects of alcohol use include unintentional injury, intentional injury from firearms, sexual assault, domestic violence, broken relationships, high blood pressure and strokes, liver disease, brain and nerve damage, sexual dysfunction, ulcers, gastritis, malnutrition, and also death. Now, drinking does not always lead to an alcohol use disorder, but there are things you can do to ensure that you keep your risk low for dependence. Take a look at the chart below. This demonstrates low-risk drinking guidelines or limits. Now, keep in mind that a standard drink is one 12-ounce bottle of beer or wine cooler, a 1 5-ounce glass of wine, or 1.5 ounces of 80 proof distilled spirits. A major nationwide survey of 43,000 U.S. adults by the National Institutes of Health shows that only about 2 in 100 people who drink within both the single day and weekly limits below have an alcohol use disorder. How do these low risk levels compare with your drinking pattern? Now remember, again, a standard drink is one 12-ounce bottle of beer or wine cooler, one 5-ounce glass of wine, or 1.5 ounces of 80 proof distilled spirits. But low risk does not mean no risk. Even within these limits, alcohol can cause problems if people drink too quickly, have an underlying health problem, or are older. Both men and women over 65 generally advised to have no more than 3 drinks on any day and no more than 7 per week. But based on your health and how alcohol affects you, you may need to drink less or not at all. Now, one question often comes up is, why are women's low risk limits different than men's? Well, research shows that women start to have alcohol-related problems at lower drinking levels than men. One reason is that, on average, women weigh less than men. In addition, alcohol disperses in body water, and pound for pound, women have less water in their bodies than men do. So after a man and woman of the same weight drink the same amount of alcohol, the woman's blood alcohol concentration will tend to be higher, putting her at greater risk for harm. When is low-risk drinking still too much? It's safest to avoid alcohol altogether if you are taking medications that interact with alcohol, managing a medical condition that can be made worse by drinking, certainly if you're underage, planning to drive a vehicle or operate machinery, and are pregnant or trying to become pregnant. Well, this is the end of Module 5. Now remember, at the end of this 6-module series, you will have an assessment to complete. In Module 6, we'll be looking at illicit drugs and prescription drug misuse.